Today I'm going to be watching this video. It's called Why Australia is Key to the US Military's New Asia Strategy. So interested to see this. I was reading recently about something called Pine Gap, which I think is like some sort of US base in the centre of Australia. Tell me if you know about that, tell me what you know about it. But interested to know what this is all about. Obviously the US and China having a bit of a interesting relationship over the last however many years, but interested to know what part Australia is going to be playing in this strategy. Tell me what you know about this and tell me what you think about it too. Let's watch.
I'm traveling into Australia's remote northern territories, riding with the US Marines as they deploy into over 500,000 square miles of outback. As tensions between the US and China continue to increase, America is sending thousands of troops to Australia and building infrastructure at key locations in the country. In a strategy to prepare for a potential war over Taiwan, the US is increasing its military presence here to a level not seen since World War II.
Yeah, tell me what you think about that. As an Australian, do you have any concerns about that? Would it make you more of a target for China if America had such a strong presence there? Are you just not really worried about that at all? Do you encourage it to have that stronger relationship with the US? Yeah, give me your thoughts so far.
The US and China have described Taiwan as the region's most volatile flashpoint. Taiwan is regarded by China as part of its territory, and Beijing has vowed to take control of the island by force if necessary. President Biden has said the US would intervene militarily if that happened, potentially bringing America and China into direct conflict. Australia's geography offers advantages for the US. Lying outside the range of most Chinese missiles, the country has been compared to an unsinkable US aircraft carrier.
We're flying into the northern Australian outback. We're going to go visit a Australian air base where the U.S. is spending tens of millions of dollars to upgrade infrastructure as it beefs up its footprint in the region.
Tyndall is one of those sites, an airbase that will soon be able to host up to 6 B-52 bombers, long-range aircraft that can carry nuclear weapons. The runways and facilities here are being significantly expanded, making Tyndall one of the only bases in the region able to host B-52s. Officials say bombers will soon begin making more frequent deployments here. It's part of an effort to turn Northern Australia into a strategic hub for US forces. Australia's size allows the US to spread its facilities across a vast area. American Marines and fighter aircraft operate from bases in the north. US military equipment is being stored over 2,000 miles away in the south. And American nuclear submarines will soon start rotating through a naval base on the west coast. Should war break out, the US can send these forces to its network of bases spread throughout the region. The work has taken on a new urgency as concerns grow over China's frequent military exercises around Taiwan.
We're up here in Darwin right now, and that's where the Marine Air Ground Task Force from MRFD deploys for about 6 months.
Colonel Mulvihill commands a contingent of around 2,000 American Marines in Australia. In the event of a conflict, these troops would be deployed to areas within the range of China's missiles, aircraft, and ships.
Nobody wants a war with China, so how do these forces deter and bring stability to the region? It's really our main focus. The key is to balance your lethality with your survivability. We've been fighting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for over a decade, and the tactics that we applied there just don't apply to the modern battle space. So distributed operations, those forces are more survivable because they have a smaller signature management, physically, electromagnetically. They're harder for our adversaries to find.
We traveled with the Marines deep into the outback to see how they are fine-tuning a strategy seen as critical to fighting China in its neighborhood. In a conflict scenario, teams of Marines would move forward as far and as fast as possible. Their deployment in small, fanned-out units requires developing nimble resupply tactics.
Behind us is a forward refueling point where they've set up basically a temporary gas station for these Ospreys.
Dispersing troops and equipment is a tactic designed to make it harder for enemies to detect and take out units in one decisive blow. America's growing footprint in Australia is part of a broad shift in how the U.S. positions its forces as it seeks to deter China. Any U.S. military action in the region would involve America's large military bases in South Korea, Japan, and Guam. But these bases and their fuel and logistics facilities would likely be targeted by China in the early stages of a conflict. Any reinforcements being sent from the U.S. West Coast to Asia could take days to arrive. The U.S. plan is to disperse troops and supplies across the region to mitigate this threat. Huge new tanks have been built in Australia's north to allow more American aircraft to refuel.
The idea of creating infrastructure and to be able to forward posture capabilities is really important for us. The distances from places like Camp Pendleton and even Hawaii are so long that it would be costly and inefficient to constantly bring material and vehicles and even fuel in and out. Our actions obviously have strategic implications, and that's why we're regularly rehearsing bringing those forces in, bringing those capabilities in, because Darwin and the Northern Territory is such strategic terrain.
See, like, yeah, tell me if you're from like Darwin or the Northern Territories. Has anybody raised any objections to things like this? Would it have any chance of making anything different if they did have it? I guess things like this are just very high-level government. There's not much choice in the matter, but yeah, good to hear it's like more of a deterrent rather than actually them really 100% expecting war to break out. What do you think is going to happen with that? Do you think China will ever invade Taiwan? Yeah, I mean, like, it could be the next decade or so. Things could get quite interesting. In Australia could be quite an important part of that as well. I had no idea about this.
China has warned the U.S. military buildup in northern Australia could spark an arms race. But the American military continues to beef up its presence here as it shifts to focus on the threat from China. It's a vast effort to prepare for a conflict unlike any it has fought for decades.
I mean, that's kind of just a bit worrying. Like, you just, obviously in an ideal world, there's no war and like everybody just gets along, but of course that's never going to happen. But when you hear them say it could be like such a big war, man, it's quite scary in a way. But yeah, interesting to know America already putting things in place for that, like big plans obviously in Australia. So yeah, again, just tell me if you're from Australia what you know about this already. What do you think about it? I'm sure there'll be a lot of different opinions on it. I guess we're all allies, British, Australian, Americans, so we should all be kind of helping each other out. But just interested to know what people think about actually setting up camps and all these things on Australian land in the north. So tell me what you think about this. Thanks.